Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news and church stories. I am Oyin Okbala. Let's begin. A wave of concern is sweeping across communities as major developments in healthcare, education, and public administration dominates tonight's headlines. From the aftermath of a devastating fire at the Bamenda Hospital to growing allegations of malpractice at CMA Hospital Mutengene, citizens are demanding accountability, transparency, and swift action from authorities. At the same time, educators and public workers are voicing frustrations over poor welfare and unpaid entitlement, exposing persistent challenges within essential public services. Tonight on Undaunted, we bring you in-depth coverage of the Bamenda Regional Hospital's assurance of a speedy recovery following the destructive blaze, a patient's call for an investigation into alleged unofficial drug sales and delayed medical care at the CMA Hospital, Mutengene, concerns raised by the GCE examination superintendents over inadequate remuneration and difficult working conditions, and the mounting frustrations of Tubah Census Enumerators still waiting their outstanding allowances amidst growing financial hardships. Stay with us as we unpack the stories shaping lives across the southern Cameroons, across Africa, and beyond. But first, let's get the prime headlines. Here are the prime headlines for tonight. A man returning from Dubai got kidnapped, shot dead after ransom demand in southern Cameroons. Also tonight, patient calls for investigation into alleged unofficial drug sales and delayed care at CMA Hospital Mutengene. GCE examination superintendent raises concerns over poor pay, challenging workers' condition. Tubah Census Enumerators demand outstanding allowances amidst mounting financial hardships. Also tonight, African Union condemns deadly coordinated terrorist attacks in Mali, reaffirms commitment to regional security, while on the global scene, Russian missile and drone barrage kills at least 14 in Kyiv ahead of NATO summit. Now let's get the news in full briefings. A man identified as Fidelis, who had reportedly just returned from Dubai, was kidnapped and later shot dead in Mbeshia village, Upper Bayang, in the southern Cameroons. Well, according to local sources, residents said the victim had only recently arrived in the village when armed men believed to be fighters operating in the area abducted him and forced him into the surrounding bush. Sources familiar with the incident alleged that the kidnappers demanded a ransom of 7 million CFA for his release. His family, however, was reportedly only able to raise about 700 CFA francs, which was delivered to the abductors in the hope of securing his freedom. Despite the payment, Fidelis was not released. His body was later discovered with multiple gunshot wounds after he was allegedly executed and abandoned by his captors. The killing has sent shockwaves through the local community, with residents expressing grief and renewed fears over the worsening security situation. The incident is the latest in the growing wave of kidnappings, targeted killings, and other violent attacks that have continued to affect communities across the southern Cameroons. Civilians have increasingly found themselves caught in the prolonged armed war, with reports of abductions for ransom and extrajudicial killings becoming a persistent feature of the war. As of the time of reporting, no group had officially claimed responsibility for the killing, and authorities had not publicly committed on the incident. The circumstances surrounding this abduction and execution remains under investigation. Barrister Mbeshia, welcome to another week here on Undaunted. Good evening. How are you?
Great. Happy to have you. Happy to have me here again.
So much for coming once again, and as usual, we'll bring up all of the burning situations and we'll place them here to prefer solutions, to advise, and of course to calm the situations of things down. This is a very sad report here coming in, and report says he just came back probably from business from Dubai, and then he was kidnapped. Ransom was asked for, ransom was paid, and yet he was still killed regardless of all of the ransom that was paid and all of that. This is a very sad situation. But another striking part of this situation is, while no people, of course, we know that this would have been done by unknown gunmen that we see. There are indications, there are some other part of the report that is trying to push the blame to, in quote, the ASA for doing the kidnapping and taking the ransom. But we know all of that is just trying to, give the ASA a bad name. But let's get your point of view.
Being an ASA crime. What is strange here is we have known kidnapping for ransom to be an urban crime. Now this one is happening in a village. Our villages are supposed to be secured because everybody is supposed to know each other person living there. And if the villages have become sent kidnapping and ransom, then there is security in Amazonia. And so you ask, those who even mention the name of Amazonia, in the village were supposed to know that. And so at this point, if they are not known, what's being to identify them? Because we have dealt with traditional authority. In the villages, traditional authority amount. If you visit from another village, you are where they receive you as a visitor. You know where you came from. You know your parents. You know your village. And so all these things are going on now, right inside the villages, without any question asked. Where? I hear it is in Manu. It's Manu who made the governor the chief of chiefs of Manu. And so if they can, if the governor is the chief of chiefs and they are the traditional villages, what are they doing about it? If our chiefs are to compromise to become or accomplices of crimes, we have to say no. Fingers crossed. But because when they somebody in the village, where did they take him to? In a helicopter out of it? No. You must stay into some farm there where the villagers are farming. And therefore, if the story is true, there must be accomplices in that village. These accomplices are not strange to this. Again, as I've just said, in a village, everybody knows each other. And so this is not a Brazilian crime. It can never be attributed to the AS. Because again, all the ASA in a particular locality are known to the villagers. They are just young men of the village who go out and operate the guerrilla warfare and come back, and they sleep in their houses. So they cannot be kidnappers because they'll be identified as soon as possible. And these people said they paid the ransom. They paid it to who? They paid it to who? Because ransom taking can be stopped if you trace the person receiving the ransom. You don't receive it within 48 hours. You take the money to a particular location, either leave it there or to hand it somebody who is identifiable. And so there's much to be told. We're not very familiar with all the facts. But the speculation is that there's some complicity in the village. And if the complicity is in the village, the chief who is supposed to be head of the village should be answerable. And since the chief is also a chief under the chief of chiefs, and the chief of chiefs is the governor, the chain goes on and goes on. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barrister. Away from that, let's get into health, where a patient has raised serious concerns about the quality of care and professionalism at the CMA Hospital Mutengene, popularly known as the Maternity Boyer Road, alleging that some health workers are placing financial interest ahead of patients' welfare. In a complaint submitted to our newsmen, the patient accused certain nurses at the hospital of engaging in their unofficial sale of medication to patients, despite the facility having an established pharmacy responsible for dispensing prescribed drugs. Well, according to the complaint, patients requiring urgent medical attention are allegedly pressured to purchase medication directly from some members of staff before receiving timely care. The complainant claimed that those who refuse to buy drugs through these unofficial channels face unnecessary delays in treatment, even in emergency situations. The patients described their practice as deplorable and inhumane, arguing that healthcare professionals have an ethical duty to prioritize saving lives over personal financial gain. According to them, they say that it is heartbreaking that people who come to the hospital seeking urgent medical assistance are made to choose between complying with unofficial demands or risking delays in receiving care. The complainant stated, adding that such conduct undermines public confidence in the healthcare system. The complaint further called on the Ministry of Public Health to launch a thorough investigation into the allegations and assess whether patients' care standards and professional ethics are being upheld at the institution. If substantiated, the allegations could raise concerns about compliance with established procedures governing their dispensing of medicines in healthcare facilities, as well as the broader issue of accountability within public and faith-based health institutions. Undaunted has not independently verified the allegations contained in the complaint. The publication remains committed to balanced reporting and is open to publishing a response from the management of the hospital in Mutengene, the Cameroon Baptist Convention Health Services, or the Ministry of Public Health regarding the claims. Right, Barrister, last week on our health bulletin, it was of course the Bamenda Regional Hospital being in flames. Today, on our health bulletin, it's the fact that patients are complaining badly that staff are having their own personal drugs to sell. You know, when you talk about corruption, talk about corruption in education, you talk about corruption in different angles, you can look at it as just humans being indisciplined. But when you talk about corruption in the health sector, it can only go to show that there is not just indiscipline, there is very little, proper attention or priority set in for lives. How do staff sell their personal drugs to patients? How bad, how terrible can it be? Barrister, over to you.
Well, we all know that these are allegations. And Mutengene is not a very big. The person telling the story, while not being verifiable, is not yet verified. You can call that person, man or woman, a whistleblower. And what we are doing here equally is whistleblowing. If the authorities in charge of health in Chico and in Mutengene in particular were not aware of what is going on, it is now public. What are they expected to do? They are expected to investigate and bring the criminals to book. Because when people begin to market health, that is marketing life. Drugs that could cure you, without them, you will die. Drugs that will reduce your pain, without them, you will suffer from the pain. And so if these drugs are supposed to save the public, the people, the servants, the nurses, and the medical staff administering them be of some ethical trust. But if they have been reduced to this level, which we are not sure that it is true, then something very fundamentally wrong is wrong. Something fundamental is wrong with that health service. Is it only in Mutengene? I doubt. If it is in Mutengene, maybe it is replicating itself somewhere else in the medical system of Amazonia. And so, because we are not sure of the facts, we can only say that we are acting now as whistleblowers for those in authority to know that something is smoking somewhere. They have taken adequate steps to make sure they investigate. It is required under Amazonia, investigate whoever is liable, bring them to justice. Justice in this case might not necessarily be going to prison. You can be sanctioned administratively. You can be dismissed from your job. And so many other things that can happen to you sanction-wise. And so again, this is Mutengene. Mutengene is not a very big place. The CMA they don't have a very big staff. I'm not sure they're even up to 20 there. So they know everybody, every single staff who works in that place. And so the smaller the people, the suspects, the easier it is to investigate and bring the criminals to book. And so we can only call on the authorities there to be prudent, to take their business seriously, to be vigilant, to be alert to this rumor. For now, there are rumors. And if there are rumors, they should be investigated so that in future they don't need to continue if there are rumors. Over to you.
All right, we would hopefully there will be some up to date because these are high allegations, and because it's about health, we definitely hope to hear some, some results or some investigations go on, and we'll definitely bring it up here when that has been concluded. But away from that, let's get into education, where some officials serving as superintendents during their ongoing general certificates examination have expressed concern over what they describe as inadequate remuneration and difficult working conditions, warning that the situation could undermine the integrity of examination process if left unaddressed. Information made available to Undaunted indicates that several superintendents deployed to examination centers across the country are required to travel long distances, in some cases twice every week, to collect confidential examination question papers from designated catchment centers located in major towns. Well, according to officials, these repeated journeys come with significant transportation costs and logistical challenges, particularly for those serving in remote areas where access to examination centers is difficult. Beyond transportation, the superintendents say they are expected to personally cover expenses related to accommodation, feeding, and other operational needs throughout the duration of their assignments before receiving any reimbursement or payment at the end of the examination exercise. They explain that after completing a mission lasting about 16 days, some superintendents receive a total allowance of approximately 88 CFA, an amount they say is insufficient to offset the actual expense incurred during the period. In many cases, officials report spending more than they eventually receive, leaving them to absorb the financial losses associated with carrying out their duties. The officials argue that the demanding nature of the assignment, coupled with the low financial compensation, places unnecessary pressure on personnel responsible for ensuring the smooth conduct and credibility of one of the country's most important national examinations. They further warned that inadequate remuneration could create vulnerabilities within the examination systems by exposing financially strained officials to risks of bribery, examination malpractice, and possible leakages of confidential examination materials. Well, according to superintendents, improving the welfare of examination officials is not only a matter of fairness but also an important important safeguard for maintaining the credibility and integrity of the GCE examination process. The affected officials are thereby calling on the GCE board to review the allowances and working conditions of examination superintendents and other field personnel with the aim of ensuring those entrusted with administering their examinations are adequately supported throughout the exercise. Barrister Mbeshia, over the weekend, we talked about the GCE being alive. You know, that was a question we talked about. And while we're trying to analyze that, we didn't even know that some of the people, workers or staff who by their title superintendent are being given little or nothing with all of the working conditions that they have to meet. Barrister, this seems to be an area you're very passionate about, you know, education and the GCE examination as a whole. This is another angle to the question we asked over the weekend, if the GCE board is still alive or not. Barrister, let's get your point of view.
Yeah, over the week, where the GCE board is still alive or dead. And that was the administration of the GCE board. And that discussion based on the fact that examination, and this is an examination, a pretendent of the GCE superintendent who is complaining of no money. Could the leakage come from this sort of complaints? If people to the field with sensitive questions without adequate provision for their financial survival, is it possible that they could become themselves leakers of selling the questions out, get profit out of it? That is highly likely because they're also human beings. And so the GCE board is like in other institutions, call it a decree, which is often meaningless. They don't apply all the terms of law. But the GCE decree providing for financial provision, decree 2019-100 of 2019, March 2019, provide for 3 how it should be funded. They are supposed to pay the tax as per the subject. In addition to that, they are supposed to raise funds from somewhere else, donations, and carry out other fundraising activities. And then, of course, they depend on government subventions. If they have all these financial openings to them, why are they not fulfilling the basic of mission superintendents? Why? Is it deliberate or it is negligence? It could be both. But as you said last week, if an administrator, the man who sees the day-to-day running of that body, is not there, he has been absent for 3 years, the registrar, it is he who is supposed to appoint the superintendent. It is he who signs our payment. They are not there. They were never appointed back in 2019. And so you are likely going to have all these things will come in because the decree is not being fulfilled. That is deliberate, or it is negligent. Whatever is the thing, negligent or it is affecting our people to the core. This man is complaining. So he's not alone. He might be a very good one complaining. He might just use the opportunity to sell examination questions to survive. And so if you create a loophole, the consequences of a loophole, non-payment of financial remunerations where they are due can create impossible things that you cannot imagine. And so, again, the GCE, if it has to be the GCE, it has to meet requirements. It has to be something that somebody working there should be proud. You don't expect somebody, a superintendent, for example, I saw them somewhere, to carry the questions on his food, on the motorbike. No. There should be financial provision for those things. Provide them the means that those things. Provide them enough money to feed when they go out on missions. If you don't do this, create a that will affect the overall GCE. Over to you.
All right, Barrister. Thank you so much. We appreciate your presence here, regardless. But we have one more report here about the Tubah census, where enumerators participating in the census are Well, you're welcome back. Enumerators participating in Cameroon's ongoing population and animal census in Tubah, southern Cameroons are calling on authorities to settle outstanding allowances, saying prolonged payment delays have left many struggling to meet basic needs, including healthcare, despite continuing to carry out their assignments. Well, information received indicates that about 100 enumerators were recruited and trained for the census exercise in Tubah. Well, before deployment, they reportedly signed insurance documents and were informed that they would receive a daily 3,500 CFA allowance, with payments scheduled every 10 days throughout the exercise. However, after working for approximately 72 days, their enumerators say they have received only 3 rounds of payments, leaving them with unpaid allowances covering 30 days of work. Based on their agreed daily rate, each affected enumerator is owed about 105,000 CFA. The workers say the delay has created severe financial hardships, particularly as many depend on their allowances to cover transportation, feeding, and other daily expenses while conducting fieldwork. They argue that despite operating in an environment marked by insecurity and uncertainty, they have remained committed to completing the national assignment. The situation has reportedly begun affecting the welfare of some enumerators. Well, according to information received by Undaunted, one of the field report worker is currently ill but has not been unable to seek adequate medical treatment because of financial constraint linking to their delayed payments. The nationwide population and animal census, which is tagged as Cameroon's first since 2005, officially commenced April 24th and is expected to continue until the 31st of July 2026. The exercise is aimed at generating updated demographic and livestock data to support national planning and development policies. The late payment of field personnel has been a reoccurring concern since the exercise began, with enumerators in several parts of the country previously raising similar complaints. In a number of instances, payments were reportedly processed only after the concerns received public attention. Enumerators in Tubah are now urging the authorities responsible for the census to immediately clear the outstanding allowances, saying they have waited for more than a month and need the funds to sustain themselves while completing the exercise. Barrister Mbeshia, you would agree that right from the very beginning of the exercise, remuneration has always been the problem. We've had reports of people from Kumba, different parts, complaining of no payments, delayed payments, payments not up to date, and all of that. And it's something to be scared of, that even up until now, payments are still an issue. I mean, look at the cases of the Tubah workers complaining at this point. What would be your take here?
It's a joke. It's not a job that you have a salary. When they say they work for 72 days without wages, it's no longer census. It's no longer census. Census is not supposed to last for more than 40 days. Because what a census is a head count of people. If it lasts for that long, what prevents you from being counted in Bamenda? Next week, you go to Mkambe, you are counted there. Another week, the same person moves to Douala or to Buya or to Kumba. You will be counted 10 times over. It makes the outcome so unreliable that it has no meaning. And so they are supposed to have employed thousands of those people who did us. And then the rest of the time is spent guarding no longer going on food enumeration. This is probably the third or fourth census in Cameroon. I've never seen the results. Census is to help the government of things. So it's to show how you get people assembly. For which people that down with 5 parliamentarians, and then people will produce 10. There's no reason for that. Because civilized society, they will take one represent 80,000, 50,000 people. If the president gives so many parliamentarians left create, no justification, nothing. Like in Cameroon, the whole census is designed to steal money and for it to fail because they are not being paid. But remember that the whole society, they got a loan from the World Bank or other institutions. Where is the money? If they are not paying these young people who are supposed to be paid cash, who you move to enumerate in the village, you have to eat, you have to sleep for the few days that you are there and come back. They deploy you to the field. What they promise to give you, they don't even give. How do they expect you to do the counting? If you don't have the money, you are going to come back with some figures. But are those figures reliable? What prevents you from sitting at the corner, taking your pen and found 20 people here and without anything to justify it? And so the whole census concern us Ambazonians. That's not how a census is run. Once it is defective, it is defective. It is. When it lasts for longer than what they are thinking, it ceases to be a census. Because, as I've said, the rare enumeration, that is the head count of people, or farms or animals, because they also count animals to know how many people rear animals. They count those things. If it is done for more than 48 hours throughout the country, it becomes 40. Because there will be double counting, there will be forgeries, there will be so many things they cannot account for. So again, added to the plight where the people are not having the money even to do the thing. They have been promised money. The guys who promised the money are the authority. They had a budget in hand. They calculated and realized that one person will have so much per day. And they are not even paying it. They have no reason for not paying it. They are not even defending it. The last I saw, one of the enumerators complained somewhere in the Bolova or somewhere. What happened? Without payment. Why? To silence him. Why? To let other enumerators who could complain keep quiet, never to complain anymore. But again, where is the money that was budgeted for? Where is the money that they took loan to do this business? The money is simply stolen. The result, whatever thing will come out, is going to be so unreliable. It has no meaning. It will really have no meaning. Because that's a faulty census. It took off in a faulty background. It ended in a faulty results.
All right. When it's a faulty foundation, the results are likely to be faulty. Right. Thank you so much, Barrister. Thank you so much for being with us. We can hear baby Mbeshia at the background seeking for attention, and we sincerely appreciate that you're able to do this regardless. Thank you so much, Barrister, for being with us. Tomorrow is another time, and we hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you for having me.
All right, when we return from the break, we'll head into Africa, where the African Union condemns deadly coordinated terrorist attacks in Mali, reaffirms commitment to regional security. African Union has strongly condemned the recent wave of coordinated terrorist attacks in Mali, describing the violence as a grave threat to peace, security, and stability across the Sahel and the African continent. In a statement issued on Sunday, African Union Commission Chairperson Ali Yusuf expressed deep concern over the large-scale attacks that targeted northern Mali and areas near the capital, Bamako, over the weekend. He emphasized that the incident shows the persistent danger posed by terrorism and violent extremism in the area. Well, according to Malian government, the attacks were carried out by heavily armed militants operating in northern parts of the country as well as locations close to Bamako. The violence marks another significant escalation in Mali's prolonged security crisis, which has intensified despite years of military operations against extremist groups. The attackers reportedly included Tuareg separatist factions from northern Mali, where severe armed movements have sought greater autonomy or outright independence for the territory they refer to as Azawad. Over the years, some of these groups have forged tactical alliances with the groups of the support of the Islam and Muslims and an al-Qaeda-affiliated jihadist coalition that has expanded its influence across the Sahel, complicating efforts to restore peace and stability. Reacting to the attacks, Yusuf stated that the incident served as a reminder that terrorism remains one of the most pressing security challenges confronting Mali and its neighboring countries. He warned that the growing activities of extremist organizations continues to undermine regional stability, threaten civilian lives, and hamper development efforts across West Africa. The AU Commission chair reaffirmed the continental body unwavering solidarity with the government and the people of Mali during what he described as a difficult period. He stressed that the African Union remains committed to supporting the Malian authorities alongside regional organizations and international partners in efforts to combat terrorism, strengthen security institutions, and promote lasting peace throughout Mali and the wider Sahel region. Yusuf also underscored the importance of stronger collective action among African nations, noting that defeating terrorism requires sustained regional cooperation, intelligence sharing, and coordinated security operations capable of addressing cross-border threats. The latest assault adds to a growing list of deadly jihadist attacks that have struck Mali in recent months, underscoring their deteriorating security environment despite ongoing counter-terrorism campaigns. The country continues to face persistent violence from extremist groups linked to the Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, as well as armed separatist movements operating across its vast northern territories. All right, when we return right after this short break, we head into the globe where Russian missile and drone barrage kills at least 14 in Kyiv ahead of NATO summits. At least 14 people have been killed and nearly 60 others injured after Russia launched one of its largest overnight attacks on Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced on Monday. The devastating assault came just a day before a crucial NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, where Ukraine is expected to push for stronger military support, particularly in air defense. Well, according to President Zelensky, Russian forces fired 68 missiles and 351 attacks on drones in the overnight barrage, targeting Kyiv and surrounding areas. The attack damaged more than 10 locations across the capital, including residential departments, buildings, civilians, infrastructure, and other key facilities, leaving widespread destruction and forcing emergency crews into intensive rescue operations. In the wider Kyiv region, local authorities confirmed that 3 additional people were killed and 16 others sustained injuries, bringing the total human toll even higher. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said rescue teams across had managed to save 64 people, including 2 children, from damaged buildings. Emergency services continue search and rescue operations through the morning, amid concerns that more victims could still be trapped beneath the rubble. The latest bombardment is part of an escalating wave of Russian airstrikes that have intensified in recent weeks. Just last week, Russian strikes reportedly killed at least 30 civilians in Kyiv, placing enormous pressure on Ukraine's already overstretched emergency responders as the conflict enters its fourth year. In a renewed appeal to Ukraine's Western allies, President Zelensky urged the United States and European partners to take decisive action at their upcoming NATO summit by strengthening Ukraine's air defense capabilities. He specifically called for additional Patriot air defense systems and interceptors missile, arguing that existing Western stockpiles should be deployed to protect civilians and Ukrainian civilians. Well, as long as Patriots missiles remain in our allies' stockpiles, Russia is only encouraged to keep destroying residential buildings, Zelensky said, stressing that stronger air defenses would save lives and help shield critical infrastructure from continued missile and drone attacks. The strikes showed Russia's continued reliance on large-scale aerial assaults against Ukrainian cities, despite mounting international condemnation. It also highlights Ukraine's growing demand for advanced air defense systems as Moscow continues to intensify its long-range missile and drone campaign. The attack is expected to dominate Russia's discussions at the NATO summit, where alliance leaders are set to deliberate on additional security assistance, military aid, and long-term support for Ukraine as the war, which began with Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022, shows no signs of easing. That's it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. But before we go, let's take a look at the stories that made it to tonight's headline. Tonight on Undaunted, we told you that a man returning from Dubai got kidnapped, shot dead after ransom demands in southern Cameroons. Also tonight, patient calls for investigation into alleged unofficial drug sale and delayed care at CMA Hospital Mutengene. GCE examination superintendents raised concern over poor pay, challenging working condition. Also, Tubah Census Enumerators demand outstanding allowances amidst mounting financial hardship, while African Union condemns deadly coordinated terrorist attacks in Mali, reaffirming commitment to regional security. Was on the African scene. Russian missile and drone barrage kills at least 14 in Kyiv ahead of NATO summit. Was on the global scene. Special gratitude goes to our in-house analyst, barrister Mbeshia, who was able to join tonight's production, and also appreciation to all technical teams behind tonight's production. It's good night and God bless you.